Trevor Long from EFTM. We are back home from Apple Park in Cupertino here in Australia, and we have our hands on the iPhone 11 and iPhone 11 Pro to get a look at how they perform and just how that camera stacks up. Now, first and foremost, the distinct difference between the iPhone 11 and the 2 Pro, the Pro and the Pro Max, is more than just the camera. The screen technology on the iPhone 11 isn't quite as good as the Pro, and you really don't notice it until you're looking on an angle. So if you look at a phone on an angle, the iPhone Pro, the 11 Pro, is much, much brighter, whereas the 11 standard just kind of dulls out a little bit. So the viewing angle on the OLED screen on the Pro, remarkably better, I would say. Now, the iPhone 11 standard though, I mean, for what it is at $1199, really bats above the average. So the A13 Bionic chip on board is next level in terms of performance. Very hard thing to test and judge though, to be honest. You really need to be doing serious machine learning style applications, and in everyday use, I'm not sure most people are going to notice that big difference. One thing I will say though about the front face of both these phones is there is a lot of black around the screen. It sounds ridiculous to be saying it, but when you now look at, say, the latest Samsungs and the like, the screens are really pushing the edges. So for me, it stands out, the amount of edge around the screen. That screen to body ratio, not as high on the iPhone as it is on others. Now, I think the standout feature here for these phones is without question the cameras. So the iPhone 11 has an additional camera. They're quite big, the camera lenses on here, if you compare them to last year's 10R and 10S. But the reason for that is there's an ultra wide lens there. So the 11 has a standard wide and an ultra wide. The 11 Pro has a standard wide, ultra wide, and the 2x telephoto. Now just here, we're at Sydney Harbour. This is an iconic location. There's tourists behind me. This is exactly the scenario where you would use that ultra wide. So you take out your phone, you go to take a photo, and what you realize is you can't actually fit the whole bridge in, or you can't fit the whole group of friends and tourists in. So what you do, you go to the ultra wide and you get a huge extra amount of viewing angle without having to step back. So the Pro gives you that 2x telephoto as well. That's what's been in the 10, the 10S, the 10S Max. So standing here, I could probably take a photo of the flag on the top of the bridge with the 2x telephoto. But because of the addition of the ultra wide, I can go from 2x out to 0.5 in, which is a 4x multiplier on the zoom. Amazing stuff on a smartphone camera. Now, one of the claims Apple made during that keynote was that the iPhone 11 has the best video of any smartphone. It's a big claim, so we're putting it to the test here. We're recording this bit on the iPhone 11 Pro Max. The stabilization we found is excellent, but there is that tricky jump when it goes from the 2X to the 1 to the 0.5 ultra wide. That, not so great. So let's use the Harbour Bridge here as an example. This is a standard view, and I'm in video mode, so I'll roll on video. And now if I wanted to, say, point at the flag on the top of the bridge, I can zoom in with a 2x zoom. Now the focus was immediate, the colors are the same. If I go back to the standard, the problem here, and this is the problem most people are having with, either friends, families, groups, or landmarks like this, is you can't get the whole thing in. So now if I go to the ultra wide, designated here by the 0.5, click that, I've got the ultra wide view. So I've got some of the harbour in, I've got the bridge in, I've even got the city in. And what I can also do, which is still standard, but it's now a little bit easier to do with this dial, is actually use a dial to zoom. Now the only thing I've noticed in my testing that I'm not entirely happy with is when I flick through to the 1 here, you'll notice a bit of a jump from the ultra wide to the wide when you actually change lenses. It's not perfect, but it's pretty seamless overall. Now, one of the things we talked about in the last week, and I think it's important to point out, is Apple is by no means first with a triple lens camera. Look at these. LG, Oppo, Huawei, Samsung all have multiple cameras, triple lens, even 4 or more lenses on their cameras. So I think you've got to look at Apple as not being first, but they would argue they're best. It's probably a tough one to judge in a very short space of time. In day-to-day photography, there's no doubt it's the best iPhone yet. But does it stack up against the Samsung and the Huawei? I think it does in the greatest detail, in the lowest light, but I think each of them has their own place. In the end, I think iPhone users will thrive on the additional camera features because they're new and they haven't had them before. Now on the front-facing camera, there are a few really cool features. First and foremost, when you're taking a selfie upright, easy, great, very good. But when you've got someone with you, you turn the camera sideways, it actually flicks to a slightly wider angle so you can fit more in. Automatically flicks, which is very good, but you do have the option of flicking in between on your own. Now in video mode, you've also got the slow-mo front-facing camera. Now, Apple, on stage, on screen, called this a slow-fi. I feel I feel dirty just saying that word. I don't think it's a good word. I don't want it in the Macquarie Dictionary, but it works very simply. You're on the front facing camera, you're in slow-mo mode, you hit record and you're getting slow motion of whatever's behind you. I don't quite know why. Maybe if you're behind a waterfall or someone behind you is bombing into a pool, but otherwise I don't see much point to that. Now both iPhones are water resistant. The iPhone 11, 2 meters for 30 minutes. The iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max, 4 meters for 30 minutes. Apple say they've tested it in salt water, coffee, you name it. But remember, you've got to be very careful with your phone. If you've dropped it on cement or something and then a week or a month or a year later it goes in the water, that original damage could compromise the phone. But here's something cool. Whether it was a splash or a full dive, if the phone knows it got wet, it's actually got detection inside it to know that it got wet. With iOS 13, and this rolls back to a couple of previous iPhones as well, I think the iPhone 10, 10s and the 11s will have this. You plug your phone in to charge and it's got water damage, it'll actually say, wait for it to dry. It'll stop you from frying your phone with electricity when it's actually been wet. All right, so here's a great example of many of the new features of the phone. So we're here at Luna Park, we're on the 2x zoom, we can crack some photos for these people and this great little character here. We go to the standard wide, we can almost get the whole laughing face in. We go to the full ultra wide and that's a cracking photo of Luna Park. But here's something new in iOS 13 on the iPhone 11. Now, we can take photos as always, but now, kind of like on Instagram, push and hold and you'll start recording. Now, if you know you want to stick with the recording, slide across. We're now recording video, take some stills there, stop the video. If you're wondering where burst has gone, because you used to take burst photos by pushing and holding the shutter, now you push and pull to the left, it'll take all your burst photos. Really simple user interface changes on iOS 13, premiering on the iPhone 11. Now, for the first time this year, Apple also have clear phone cases as accessories at Apple stores. And that's an obvious and a logical one because the phones look so good, they come in great colors, it seems weird to cover them up. But I will say, having used the Apple clear cases for a while, they're very, very strong. And while that's a good thing in terms of protection potentially, it does make pressing the buttons a bit hard. So it might be worth checking out the cases all around. There'll be plenty of third-party cases come onto the market. The iPhone 11, the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max, very similar phones with some stark differences, but very minute. So the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max have that extra camera. They have that extra capability. They have a much better screen. They have the different sizes, slightly smaller, slightly larger. But inside, they're very much the same phone, which is what draws me greatly to the iPhone 11. This ultra-wide camera adds huge potential for people at home, at parties, as when you're traveling, all those kinds of things. At $1,199 in 6 colors, green, yellow, purple, black, white, and product red, it's actually, I think, going to be the absolute top seller, despite the fact that a lot of Aussies will buy this guy on a plan. Starting at $1,749 for the iPhone 11 Pro, $1,899 for the iPhone 11 Pro Max, going up to, if you get the 512 gig model, $2,499. Now, the Pro and the Pro Max come in 4 colors this year: a silver, space gray, gold, and this magnificent midnight green. It's kind of a dull green, but something about it I love. And it may well be just because it's new, but they've done a great job to incorporate the camera module into this glass back on both phones, so it doesn't look as hideous as some of those renders back when. But these new lenses are big, they stand out. People will know you have the iPhone 11. Overall, I've had no dramas with the phones. I think that clicking between the lenses is probably the only major negative I can find in the cameras, but if you just stick with one lens when you're videoing, you'll never see that problem. I think the screen to body ratio could be improved, and that's probably what we're going to see with the next evolution of design from Apple, whether it's in 2020 or 2021. A lot of talk about the fact that these phones don't have 5G. There's only 4 phones on the market right now that have 5G out of the many hundreds that are around. I don't think it's a big drama. I don't think Aussies are desperate for 5G. I think there's some people who really love the idea of 5G and the speeds. There's phones out there you can get. There's a HTC hotspot you can get. For people that want 5G, it'll only disappoint you because it's not available everywhere yet. In a year from now, when Apple comes out with a 5G smartphone, Telstra, Optus, whoever else has 5G will absolutely have a much better network to work on that phone. Exceptional cameras, fantastic performance. The gaming performance is amazing because of the power of the things. They're on sale on the 20th of September. You make your own mind up. All right, no worries. See ya. And by the way, this was not mentioned at the keynote. In fact, I don't think it's listed in many of the features of this phone. The iPhone 11, the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max still make phone calls.